Thank you everyone for joining us today. And it's our, I think, fifth webinar or fourth webinar, weekly webinar under the name Win-Win webinar, which each month we have a panel discussion on different topics. Every month we do it in different language. So 1 month we do it in English and 1 month in Japanese. And we invite everyone, not just women, but everyone to take part in our webinars. IJ-WIN is a group that established in 2019 to empower women and give women the stage to talk about their activities related to Japan and Israel. It's a platform for every woman to join, take part, come with initiatives, and find the partners to pursue their hobbies, business, etc. And we welcome everyone to take part in the upgoing activities and new activities together as new groups and create something new. At the chat box, you can find a link to our website and to our Facebook page. There is an Instagram page. And if you want to get the monthly newsletters and updates, please fill in the form. I left a link in the chat box. And we will insert your details into our email list and update you with upcoming events and newsletters. Today we have 4 amazing women. Each one is dividing her time to bridge between groups in society in Israel. And I will give the platform to Sakurai-san to moderate this panel, and she will introduce the panelists and today's theme. So Sakurai-san, onegai shimasu.
Yeah, thank you very much, Hadas. My name is Fumio Sakurai. I am today's facilitator of this session. Nice meeting you. As Hadas already told, that today we invited 3 women who actively work on the coexistence in Israel as a panelist to exchange views on this topic. For today's agenda, we do an introduction of each speakers. Then we go on a panel discussion. Then we want to conduct the Q&A. We will be really appreciate if you can actively join the discussion or give us a question over this topic and joining this conversation. So let me start from myself. My name is Fumi. As I said, I'm originally from Japan, from Fukuoka. I lived in Israel 2005 to 2012, then 2014 to 2016. I lived in the city of Jerusalem, South Tel Aviv, and Jaffa. I moved back to Japan with my Israeli husband and our 5-year-old son. So I do have a connection with Israel, with my Jewish husband, and also I strongly actually connected to the people in, I do feel that I really strongly connected with the people in Israel due to the places that I lived. Let's ask another panelist to introduce themselves. Mili, would you like to introduce yourself? It would be nice if you can give us your position in Israel society and connection with Japan.
just me?
Yes.
Just a moment. Okay, my name is Miri Golan. I established the Israeli Origami Center in '93. And I built the origami community in Israel who connect to the origami community around the world. Since I started the origami in Israel, I also developed it in the Palestinian or Arab side and the Israeli side parallel. So I work all the way with Japan. In 2005, we got a grant from the Japanese foreign minister to make some project between Arabs and Israelis. I have many years of experience of working together, and usually the connection is Japan. Usually what's make chemists between the two sides is Japan. I also have a startup who's developed a startup to teach geometry with origami. It's been teaching in 150,000 schools all over in Israel. But my main activity is in education, and that's why I work in the two sides. I work with students from Birzeit University. So the main work is to try to see each other through the Japanese culture, and it's work.
Thanks. Would you like to continue?
Don't hear you.
Oh, I said, sorry if I disturb you. Or...
Wait.
Recording in progress.
I didn't hear anything.
Yeah, Mirit, maybe you may have some problem with sound. You okay?
I know, I don't know which one. I try. If I leave this meeting, do you hear me now?
I do. Other members? Do you hear me, Mirit?
Yes, yes.
Yes, no problem.
Okay. So let me ask next, Junko-san. Junko-san, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Junko Yasmin Otomazgin. I live in Jerusalem since 1997, and I live in the border of the East and West Jerusalem. Its meaning is Palestinian Arab neighborhood and Jewish neighborhood. My connection with Japan is I born in Japan and I grew up. Since I was a childhood, I always interested in social minority topics. Maybe I'm kind of minority in Japan. When I was living in United States southern part, I really experienced racial segregation in the society. Before I came to Israel, I was working in the media field. From my job, I started to looking for Israeli Arab relation. Then my knowledge in that time, my knowledge about Jewish is a victim of the Holocaust, and the Middle East is kind of background. When I was starting to live in Israel, I started to working for tour guide, and then I have to explain this country for Japanese. I became knowing there are two historical narratives in here. One is a Jewish narrative, the other is a Palestinian Arab narrative. A Jewish narrative is usually they are victim of the racism in the another society and the minority, and this is the reason they need creating their own state, then creating this country, and they wanted making the cultural and historical connection. And also it's important is for their safety net place. For Palestinian Arab narrative is that after the World War II, World War I, their fate was handled by another society or another nations, and they lost into their majority of the society and also the national sense, and then they have to live in a minority for own hometown. I think also here it's from the starting to struggle for the Palestinian Arabs. Because I'm Japanese, I have chance to hear of those two narratives, but I figure out most of the people living here, they don't know the other side of the narratives. So I thought about, because of also my job, I have to talk about the people, I have to explain about the people, and maybe I try to also explain to each side of this society of this different narrative. Then it's usually this kind of idea of the narrative came from the education. And this society, until maybe 20 years ago, they have usually as a normal society, they teach into their own narrative and they didn't teach in another narrative. But luckily, 20 years ago in Jerusalem and in few other places in Israel, they have a teaching to the two narrative school. Name is Hand in Hand. I decided my kids can learn from this kind of attitude of the two narratives. Then this is my starting point of the finding to the coexistence. Okay. Meantime, my introduction is finished.
Thanks. Thank you very much, Junko-san. Bi-san, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thank you, Sakurai-san. And thank you for inviting me as a guest speaker. I'm really happy to get connected to this amazing community. So my name is Bisan Salman. I was born and raised in a small city in Israel called Ramle, which is located between Jerusalem and Tel Aviv. It is a mixed city where Jews, Muslims, and Christians live together, share the city and share their lives. I was actually, I got involved with Japan for the first time when I was 15 years old. I was invited to attend a conference for young leaders from all over the world in Hiroshima. And it was the first time when I visited Japan and when I started to work with young leaders around my age from all around the world about different political and social issues worldwide. And it was then when I've decided that I want to become a leader and to try to change the country where I'm coming from, solve the conflict, and just be an agent for change and for peace in my country. It's been a long journey ever since. Today, I am one of the young leaders who are working on the regional level in the Middle East with other leaders trying to promote and create a common vision for a future equal Middle East where Israel and Palestine are both countries that exist in the context of the region. And I've been working for promoting coexistence between Arab Palestinians and Jews in Israel for many, many years. At one point, I was the political advisor of the Japanese embassy in Tel Aviv. And I realized that somehow during my career, I've been working more and more with Japan and just realized how much potential Japan has when it comes to the Middle East and specifically Israel-Palestine, which I'm sure we will elaborate more and talk more about during this event. And that's it. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you very much. So the first question from me is, what do you think the importance of coexistence and what do you do in particular for that? Bi-san, would you like to continue?
Sure. So when you say the importance of coexistence, I would actually answer on like how I imagine when we say coexistence, like why, not only why it's important, which I'm sure everyone will agree on the fact that it is very important in order for us all like to live in peace and dignity in the region and in the country, but the reason why it's like the way I imagine coexistence when we talk about coexistence, it's a bit different from what we see today. Because in my opinion, as a minority growing up in a country where I have deep roots for hundreds of years, where it is my home, I see that Arabs, Palestinians, and Jews living in the country, sharing the country without really interacting with each other, meaning coexistence. We can coexist, we do coexist now, we are existing together, but we're not really living in a shared society where there is actual relationships, language exchange, culture exchange, equality within the society, and like beyond just coexisting next to each other. I can really say that coming by like the fact that I'm coming from a mixed city, I did grow up in Arab schools without really having any interactions with the Jews in the city, or if we did have any kind of interaction, it was very shallow, meaning I would go to the shop to buy something, I can maybe have a friend, a neighbor, but not beyond that. And when I do imagine an actual coexistence or an actual shared society, I really imagine way beyond that. I imagine partnership. I imagine having respect and like tolerance and trying to find a way to beyond just exist, but actually share common values, share actual lives. And it could come in education, it could come in work or in other aspects in life. I do also focus a lot when I talk and in my work about the feeling of belongingness. The situation today in Israel is a bit complicated when it comes to its minority citizens, and the fact that we are trying to feel belonged in our home, which is creating a bit of a problem, and some clashes arises because of millions reasons we can discuss. And one of the most important aspects is to make people really feel belonged in their home, which could come, if we talk about one example, we can use language. Language is not really, we don't really see, for example, the Arabic language existing. It used to be an official language in the country, which by law this also changed in recent years. But language it's more than just like a language. It's the meaning, it's the saying that we are here, we are a part. It's identity. It's like someone who sees us. And I would like to see, for example, the Arabic language more present in the country, whether it's by teaching it in schools, the spoken Arabic at least, or in events or in the streets. And it's something that I don't really see as someone who lives in the country. And this really affects the feeling or the fact that I don't feel belonged in my own home. So I think this is like one of the baby steps, or like not baby, a big step that we can take as a society in order to create a different reality and to strengthen partnership in Israel.
Thanks, Bissam. Yeah, indeed, when I lived in Israel, especially when I was living in Jaffa, in Ajami, it was not so common to have Arabic friends there. So it was almost from my end, or my husband and myself actively talk to neighbors and get connection with them. And I think it's very, very interesting things happening. The emerging area or merging area, places like Jaffa, which have both Jews and Arabs. Also, I think Ramne also have some merging area of Arabic and Jews, and where where might has a lot of conflict, but also where have many opportunities to creating some new status of community, and probably where I think all the wish that you talked about, belonging, can emerge. Junko-san, would you like also share your thoughts of the importance of coexistence, and what do you doing particularly? I believe that what you taught us, that you actually also live in the Eastern Jerusalem, which I believe that's some kind of emerging area of both sides, as well as your children study at the very unique education program. So please share with us.
Yes, coexistence for me is very, very important, because I have kids. My kids is growing up in this society, and as most of the people know it, here is kind of it's always like haters or some kind of negative feeling in existing, and I don't want to be my kids growing this kind of atmosphere. And then also, as Bisan said, regarding the language, is because of the difference. So it's difficult to understand each other. And then sometimes they misunderstand each other. So, and that's why I wanted, the old generation is quite difficult to change in the mind, but this new generation, you can find in some kind of new formation. So this is, I said, my school do it. My school, usually we didn't say the coexistence, we say in the bilingual school, because the language is first kind of a point to meeting each other. And then if you know the language each other, you can find out each other to what they think about it, what they know about it, how they understand, how to introduce their own culture for each other. So this is my school's purpose. Then my school, my kids' school, they have 2 teachers in each class. One is Arabic teachers and one is Jewish teachers. The class itself is half of the Jewish and half of the Arabs. And then they grow up together with age of the 3. And then if somebody, in the case of the Jerusalem, if somebody wanted, can go to until the finish of the high school. And my daughter, she went from the age of 4 until the age of 12. And then my son went from the age of 3 and still continue. And I saw my kids is really understand of both of narrative, and they understand what problem it is here. And then also they understand, especially my daughter, really critical for both of the society. They have some mistake or some mistreating for the people. Then I think those kind of generation, if become more and more in this society, I think more balance of the people among the society. I understand because of the minority is really, really difficult of the most of the society, not only Israel. Because I was living also in the United States, I understand because I was a minority in there, so I understand the kind of difference of the majority of the society and the minority of the society. And Jewish people is also long-time experience of the minority in the other society. This is also they found in their problem in the historically. So now this society, they finally finding a majority in the society, but the other side, they don't know how to treat into the minority people. So I think what's the coexistence is, we don't feel like I'm minority or I'm majority of the people. Everyone having the feeling, I am what I am. And I don't have any shame of what I am. I can explain what I am for anybody. and what kind of language you're talking about, what kind of food I like it, and what kind of music I listening. But this is me. And then actually this is not, I mean, they have some kind of type of the society, but still each individual in each society, they have their own style. So this is, I think, real coexistence. You can feel like what I am is okay in here.
Thank you, Junko-san. What actually doing particularly for that coexistence at this moment?
We have our school is actually, it's school for the kids, but it's actually the parents also very active. The school, the kids is more easy because they have framework of the classroom. The everyday people meet, kids is meeting each other, teacher teaching about both of the history or culture or language. But it's people like us, like adult people, parents generation, we already have in the out of the society, I mean, not framework of like this, but is we have to now, meantime, we are the generation of the control in this society, like vote into the election or this kind of to what kind of policy we wanted in this society is. So our parents association is really active with this kind of like learning each other and try to many meeting to talk about some kind of, if society having the topics, we talk about each other, or it's kind of demonstration, but it's our demonstration is more family oriented demonstration to show in the society what the coexistence is. Because we can do it in the daily life to show it. And this is what I do in particularly, and also my job, because I have to explain to as a Japanese by the Japanese language to explain to this situation. So I try to explain of the both of the society and then how the reality is. It's not only like major like media usually only talk about the problem side, but the daily life, we have some kind of a common sense because we have to live in the same territory. We have same problem, like traffic condition is very worse, or some kind of educational progress, or this kind of common topics. We have to cooperate it. I mean, and this kind of stuff, usually I try to talk about talking by Japanese language for the people.
Thank you. I think it's really important that you actually help your children to be in the environment to learn both sides of the society, as well as to understand the language, not language that's meaning of what it is, but I guess language of how each society talks. And also the being with children and engage actively with children's education together with other people can be really part of strong power to pushing the boundary of what exists within the society of hatred or restriction over what they can do. Miri, I think you have a different. Yes, we can hear you. I mean, I can hear you.
Yeah.
I think you're on the back. So I think you have a different language, which is art. And you use this language to actually bridge two communities. Would you like to share the importance of coexistence for yourself and what's doing particularly?
Okay, first of all, I want to say that many years ago, it was much easier to do project between Israeli and Arab. was grant to that, was a lot of foundation for that. In the last year, it's very hard to get or raise any money to do something. That's why it's important. It's before I was very proud to do project between Israeli and Arabs. Now sometimes I'm afraid to talk about it. And it's mean the society change. In the last 10-15 years, there is a big change in the society. Every kind of society keep to their own kind, and it's not just in Israel, it's also around the world. And that's why this session is important, and that's why any activity with the two sides is very important. Now, for what you ask me, yes, the origami is the glue. Origami is the connection, not just because it's an art, it's because it's a Japanese art. When I bring the origami to the room, the two sides see Japan and see origami. The Palestinians don't really see strongly, or the Arabs doesn't see the Israeli, and the Israeli don't see the Arab. They see people. They see if it's children, so it's children. If it's a parent, so it's a parent. So they see each other, because most of the people have a difficult, because when they see the other side, they know the other side from the media. How many Israeli really met Arabs as a friend in an equal level, not because he went to the petrol station or restaurant and saw Arabs, okay? I'm talking about as a real relationship. I have Palestinian partners. She worked with me for 20 years. Her girls is like my daughter. We are like a family. We're sharing time. We do a lot of projects together. It's a real honest relationship. But not because she's Arab and I'm Israeli. Because I liked her character and she liked mine. And this is what people forget. People think, oh, he's Arabs, he's Israelis, Japanese. But beyond, if I take a pill, all these Japanese, Arabs, Israeli, I see a human being. He can be Israeli and I don't want to be his friend. He can be Israeli and I want to be his friend. It can be Arabs and I don't want to be his friend. It can be Arabs and I want to be his friend. So people forgot about this culture that we're born to. We all human beings, and we forget to see each other. Now, when we did project between Arabs and Israel, the most interesting comment of the children was, they are exactly like us. What's the meaning they are exactly like us? They think, oh, he's Arab, so, but it's the same. Because they don't meet each other as a people, again, as a people, from equal place, they forget, they think the other side is something scaring and afraid, and so our job is to melt it. Now, Junko talked about the school. There is this school, it's one in the north and one in Jerusalem. They try to make more of this school. We work there, we teach origametria there. Not in Jerusalem, we work in the north for many years. And it's very hard. It's very hard to parents to let the children to be together with others. That's why it's hard for them to survive and hard for them to be. But there is a lot of people, when they take out all this fear, all what they know from the media, then you discover kind of a beautiful relationship that can happen. So now when I work with I can't raise money for this project. I'm very sad for that, but this is the reality. But when I built my startup, the Origametria, in the first moment I built it, I translated to Arabic as Hebrew. And now I got in Majdal Khum in the north, the volunteer, it's a teacher center. They took a lot of students and they translate all of Origametria to Arabic voluntarily. So I do a lot of projects as much as I can with the Arabs, because I born in Jerusalem. I grew up in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem that time wasn't Jerusalem today. Today Jerusalem is separate, it's split. Arabs is Arabs, Israeli is Israeli. But when I grew up, it was melt. It was part of the culture I saw, and that's why, and it was beautiful, and that's why I want to see more of it. But if I can take the Japanese culture, and origami is a Japanese art, I think it's the amazing, amazing glue. When they start to fall together, they almost forget everything and just smile to each other, look at each other. I can say then that when we let the two children from two sides to make something together, but they don't speak each other language. So we ask them, how did you make it? So they say, I look at her eyes and smile, she look at my eyes, and we talk with our eyes. And I think this is what art do. And when you take all this other stuff from the room, so usually in every project we have a big Japanese flag. You allowed me to show you three pictures? I don't know if I can show. Nomi, can you release the screen share? I always in the room when we do some project, we put the Japanese flag, because the Japanese flag. Nomi, release it to Paul Jackson. Because the Japanese flag, when you come into the room, you more relax. You don't see Arabs, you don't see Israelis, you see Japanese. And then when they start to do art together, then they start the connection between them. And then it's become kind of successful. I want to show you a picture, but I don't think I can
Just
do
a moment, I'm asking to the host. I'm asking the host to
Who's the host?
to approve
Nomi?
you the share. No, not me. Hadas. Hadas, can you?
Hadas, can you release Paul Jackson? Paul Jackson. Okay, I can show you that maybe later until they release it.
Yeah,
Let me show you.
that would be
I
great.
prepared 3 pictures who can show everything. So maybe we do it later.
Yeah, when it's ready, let me know. Thank
Ah, wait.
you, Miri.
She
Oh, you
released.
got it, I think. Yeah.
Okay, she didn't.
You want PowerPoint?
No, she didn't release. All right, we have that.
Miri, you are hosting now. You can.
No, not Miri, Paul Jackson, because I'm
Okay.
two computer.
You're
הדס,
now, so you
את
can.
יכולה לעשות את פול ג'קסון הוסט?
Why is she not doing it?
I don't know.
Okay, can you do it now?
Okay. Where is it one? Oh, here, I find it. So this is one of the picture I really like. Just a minute. When you come to the room, that's what you see. You see the 1,000 crane, the children make that, and you see the Japanese flag. The Japanese flag say you're in a different planet. And here you can be free, and they take all the Japanese culture in. If you see these two girls, can you see who is the Arabs, who is the Israeli? You can't, huh? And this is the beautiful. They can work together, and people come into the room when we did the project, and they couldn't recognize who is who. But this one you can see. Yeah? So when we usually work, we try to be in this position, that we all together in the room. It doesn't matter what is my culture, what is my religion. It's my, you know, for the Japanese, the religion is something private. Yeah, it's not something you go out with. Here is the religion is really defined you. So that's why I like this picture mostly, because you don't know who it is, and this is how it should be, but it's not. The reality is not.
Thanks. Thank you for sharing with us. It's really beautiful. I mean, very attached. I want to ask other speakers if they can also share if you have some experience that Miri has, that you actually find the moment of being together with both communities. Junko-san?
Okay. Yes, actually, as Miri showing the picture, for our kids' school is normally daily like that. And then obviously the outside of the future, like people know that I'm Japanese, but it's usually most of the Japanese I asking, do you know who is Arabs and who is Jews? Nobody cannot recognize him. It's really difficult. As Israeli people usually ask me, who is Chinese and who is Korean and who is Japanese? Same as for me, it's difficult. So, but this one point is usually we can recognize each other, also Japanese and Chinese and Koreans in different language. Same here, the Arab and the Jewish usually because of the language is different and sometimes figure out each other. But the other side, the language is kind of actually the Hebrew and Arabic is very similar language, one of the similar language, but is also here because of the majority or because of the chance of the job, Hebrew is more strong. This is obvious. Then another point, maybe because of the image of the media, they show in the Arabic is kind of more negative. Let's say my husband's family came from Morocco. Actually, Arabic speaking Jewish, but many actually it was in Israel. It's many. I think more than 40% of the Jewish, or maybe let's say 35% of the Jewish. The previous generation they know the Arabic, but it's a long time they have some kind of shame to speak in this language in Jewish society. This is what I said, why people have to feel like shame. This is kind of maybe we have to change in the structure in this society. This is also kind of a step of the making the coexistence. What the Bisan said, I really agree about language is also one of the important and first step in this society. And another point, because I live in Jerusalem, and the Jerusalem is kind of really religious, is the center of the sisters, is life, and they also maybe many people, especially in Jerusalem, is kind of religious is important. But as Miri said, yes, used to be more relaxing, not like this time. It's kind of more they respecting each other because of actually religious. You think Judaism and Islam or Christianity, the final goal is the same God. So that's why if you can, it's kind of how to interpret it of the religion. If you interpret it by a political way or more face of the way, it's a really different of maybe making the society more different formation. And sometimes depends of the situation or government, what Miri said, society is more relaxing atmosphere each other, or sometimes become more tension each other. And Jerusalem is really kind of this kind of focal point and interesting place because of the land showing this kind of idea of how to relaxing, idea of how to making how to interpret it, making the more tension. So I think this is a kind of a interesting place in this land.
Yeah, indeed. Actually, once I studied Arabic, maybe few months and then another few months. And I realized that the Arabic and Hebrew is very, very similar. And there are a lot of common words and also have a similar type of expression. Obviously, the Jewish people using Arabic and also the Hebrew is old language, so it is connected to the local Arabic language. And then, you know, it's also weird to realize that how Jewish people here, not here, but Jewish people in Israel don't speak Arabic. They must easily to get it and easily to speak and easily to use to communicate and engage with Arabic people. So I do agree your thoughts that starting with a language might be one of the way to really change the structure. Thank you. Visan, would you like to continue?
Yes, it was very interesting to really listen to the discussion and see all the beautiful examples of all these programs. And it just reminds me as well how I grew up participating in all these programs and projects, and that involves art and delegations and education, not like official education system, but like the different private educational initiatives, and I grew up knowing that regardless to what the media says and regardless to the situation or the way the government is trying to present the situation to the people, I had a lot of Jewish friends, and we both tried to work in order to change the reality, to change the system in a way. But then we leave the rooms, we leave the classroom, and I used to realize that I'm not actually as equal to this friend of mine as we were in the classroom. And you see that in opportunities in the country, in the language as we spoke, in airports, and when it comes to many aspects of the country. But funny enough, it's also important to realize that when we are all abroad, so I studied in the UK and I lived in London for a while, and when you are abroad, it's just, when we are far from home, we all, like Arabs and Jews and everyone from the Middle East in general, we just get together because we are more familiar with each other's culture. And the Middle East is home, like Israel, Palestine, other places. The Middle East is home for us, and you can see that in when it comes to culture. And as you said, the languages are quite similar, and the food and like the general atmosphere and the weather, it's all very familiar to us. So it really gets us together and closer to each other, which is, for me, I always used to think that it's very funny that we need to live in order to understand that we're the same, basically. We're closer to each other rather than me being close to someone from other places in Europe or other places in the world. And it's, for me, I always get so frustrated, like with all the work I do for all these years, that I need to take a group of people, young and old, and like current leaders and like older ages, outside of the country, in order for them all to realize that we are more similar than what we think, and to strengthen this willingness to work for a better future and more equal future for everyone. And I think this realization, I really had it strongly when I was in Japan, when I was 15 years old. This had how everything started for my professional journey in leadership, and when it comes to leadership in the Middle East. And as you all mentioned here before, and especially Miri, you were talking about how the Japanese culture was like really making people from both sides just forgetting about everything and coming together around like the origami and like just like, you know, using a different language or the art language in order to just like create something together and forget about everything else for a few hours. And I really resonate with that. Like, I really think there's something very, very special in Japan and in general the Japanese culture that is bringing or making the Israelis and Palestinians and Arabs and Jews forget about all the problems in the world for a few hours. I certainly feel that, and I think this is why I keep trying to work with Japan and get back to working with Japan. And I have the willingness to bring closer the Arab culture, also the Arab world, or start with the Arab community in Israel closer to Japan, because I really don't think that there were enough opportunities like I had. And this is why I created Sawa Japan, which in Arabic means together, in order to really bring together the Japanese and the Arabs more, and in general, just to get exposed people more to Japan and to the Japanese culture. I always said there is so much potential for Japan in the Middle East, and there's a lot to do. So I definitely agree with like the things that were mentioned.
Thank you. Actually, from audience, I don't see the name, but one person also gave a comment that Arabic use old Hebrew words. For example, shalom is salom. This word is coming from the Bible.
Actually, I have to say that many Hebrew words come from Arabic. So many slang even come from Arabic. You know, many beautiful words that we use many times, people doesn't know that come from Arabic language.
It's also Arabic, like grammar, as a Japanese view, it's almost same rule of the Hebrew in Arabic. Just only one point is Arabic is more difficult because they have a Amia, like speaking on the street, and book like traditional Arabs is different. And most of the I learned to the Arabic long time, but it's traditional Arabic. I cannot communicate in well in here. So, but the other side, it's really, I saw that some Israeli people learn together with me in Arabic. They catch it much faster than me. After the 1 month, they starting to speak in some point. And also I saw in my kids in the school, many Arabic kids also speaking Hebrew. It's just another 1 year, they starting to speaking. It's kind of, I'm Japanese. For me, the both of the language, the foreign language, is a completely different formation. It's so struggle to get in the language itself. But for them, both of such easier to get catching each other. So this is, I really sometimes curious. It's wow, it's nice to get. I want it like that.
I want to give example of a word. You know, when it's too hot, in Hebrew you say 50. Yeah, 50 in Arabic it's 50. And it means there is a 50 day a year of very hot days. So you see how the language is, you know, working together, you know. So many beautiful examples how words come from Arabic to Hebrew, and sometimes you hear Arabic speaking, even Israeli Arabs, I work with them, and they're speaking to me with a mix sometimes. We're speaking sometimes English, Hebrew, Arabic, you know. So the language is moving from one side to another. But this is part of what it should be, kind of a beautiful relationship. It's nobody is better than other, yeah? That you take from each side and learn and give and take. And this is missing because now people in society thinking who is the best, who is the, you know, they kind of forget a lot of things was here 15, 20 years ago, and people just looking how their own group is very good, is very origin, very, this is something I'm very sad about happened in the last 15 years. And I hope it will be changed because it have to be changed backward.
Melit, Why you think it happened, this change? The change that you see it, that each society become harder?
It's a few reasons. One, it's happened all over the world. In many places you see each group try to be with own kind. But in Israel in 2005 was a very hard time after the peace and the hope and all this and the bus bombing. I know too many people after 2005 decide to change, to cut, to don't believe. Too many people, and it's make the society more right wing. And I think it's part of what happened. Nobody can change it, but people doesn't understand that 95% of the Arabs want to wake up in the morning, go to work, bring food to the family, give education to the kids, be a parents, be a grandma. They want to live the life. 98%. The same from the Israeli side. And 2% dealing with politics, who make feeling like this is everything. So the media, it's also have part of it. I remember I did a project, I brought, we did origami convention. It's called Origami Peace Tree. We host, there is origami peace tree in every certain years going to a different country. And in 2008, it came to Israel. We hosted. So we got about 30,000 origami model from all over the world. Beautiful. We got model from orphaned place in Russia that the children fold and send to Jerusalem, to the peace tree, and write, I hope I will have a mommy. Something really emotional from all over the world. And we brought 14 origami artists to Jerusalem, to the convention. So we make in the hotel near the olive tree a big event. We brought international artists, and we brought children from Arab school, from Israeli school, and they're working together. Day before that was some attack in Jerusalem somewhere. So I called to the media and say, you have to come and see how the children from both sides working together, how beautiful. The only reason they said they will come if I give them some kids that some family got hurt or they want to see blood, and I didn't want to give them, so the media didn't come. So the media doesn't show a good thing because they think it's not interesting. But it's something violent is more interesting, so the media show it. So the media have a part of it, and I think maybe the social media is very good at take more place because people can publish that without some condition of some, media think this is the most important. So if a reason for that it's become more extreme, part of that I think is the media. Part of that I think violence is interesting, peace is not interesting. People working together, children working together is not interesting. Children hating each other, it's interesting. So this is part of this problem will happen. But each one of us have a job to change it. You change it in the people and the more activity we can do and more things we can do, this can make the change. The change doesn't happen in a big area. It's happening in a small area. Like everybody you touch, like Junko sent her kids to mixed school. It helped because these kids grow up and have good experience. Or, any activity that people do, even small activity, today it's very important.
Thanks, Mirit. Bisan, do you agree, Mirit, about the situation getting harder these days?
Yes,
And how do you see it's the causes?
The situation is definitely getting way harder in so many ways, not only in the way that like work-wise, that it's very hard to create more programs, and that people that don't really believing in peace anymore, and they don't see it as an option because of many reasons. But I think it's also, we feel as a society more segregated, even more. Like, it's true that nationalism is becoming stronger all over the world, and we certainly feel that in Israel and in Palestine. But it's also the fact that the government have been passing a lot of extreme laws in recent countries, and eventually we feel that, or like leading some kind of policies that you can also see it as like the media is treating and like dealing with this line. We also feel that on the ground. We really feel everything that is happening, and these extreme vibes that are coming from above. We definitely feel that on the ground. And I certainly see that in my personal life, but also in my work, and how we need to deal with different issues in order to fight the system in a way. So one example I can bring is from the days when I used to work on the municipal level in my city. I used to work with different communities in my city through a young adult center that I used to manage the social involvement unit. And we used to receive funds from the municipality, and they never approved for us to use the word coexistence, because they didn't want to touch coexistence, and they said that everything is perfect in the city, and they don't want to talk about anything, and they don't want to like deal at all with anything that has to do with Arabs and Jews. And they just allowed us to write multicultural. So it's okay when you want to bring different cultures together, but it's not okay if you want to talk about the conflict, to talk about basically the elephant in the room, in order not to trigger things, in order not to raise some questions or like issues. They just want to maintain the status quo. And this is very much the attitude and the way the government or the country is leading us to. It's true when it comes to Israel-Palestine, but it's certainly true when it comes internally in Israel. And I think that in the last war, we just saw that it can't continue this way. Like, things exploded. And I wasn't surprised. I knew that this day is going to come. I just didn't know it's going to be so soon. Like I didn't expect that. Last war, I was living in Europe, and I came to visit to celebrate Easter with my family, and it just happened so fast and in so brutal way. It was only about 15 days, even less than 15 days, that took the whole society many steps back. And I think we, as people who are working with societies and with communities and like in the, trying to build bridges and trying to create a better reality, it was like a wave that erased everything we've been doing for the last few years and took us really a lot of steps back. Sorry, I thought someone is trying to say something, or it's just,
yeah.
Just can I say something about what Bissam said? I have to say, Bissam, is the first time I disagree with you. I prefer to do project without talk about the conflict, because me and my brother doesn't agree anything about the conflict. So why Israeli and Palestinian agree about it? So I think when people talk about politics, they see how far they are. But if they do think together, they learn that the neighbors is maybe from the other culture, but he's a human being like them, and they learn to respect him. And I think it's when I did all my project, I did my first pilot with Paris Center, and I worked with Aliza Savir, and we have a lot of argument. She wants to bring some therapy and let the children to talk about the conflict, and I didn't want to. I fight her. And I remember the argument we have. And then we start a pilot, and the children slowly melt to each other and work together. And nobody believed it. Suddenly they create together, and they was melting to each other. And it was beautiful to see it. And I think after that, they changed a lot of their project, because to take children and let them to, or anybody, you put in the room even 2 adults, and talk about the conflict, you don't get anywhere, because I have to say that I don't see solution in this conflict, and I don't care about the solution, and I don't think there is solution. But it is the one thing that we all need to remember, that we came to this earth for a very short time. And when we came in the short time we have, you have to look at anybody as a human being, as a person with feeling. And it doesn't matter if you grow in a Muslim, Jewish, or Buddhist culture. We all human beings, and this is what the society forgets. That's why I like when they don't talk about the conflict. Now, I agree with you that the exploding should happen and happen. It's not because of that, because if you grow up in an Arab society or Jewish society, the Jewish kids who born have much more opportunity and chances than the Arabs have. And it's a fact. When the daughter of my partner can travel only with some paper certificate and not a passport, it's a conflict. When somebody lives in Ramle next to me, and one of my best workers, she's from Ramle, her children have a different possibility than my children. This is what makes the difference. And I think I'm happy what's happening in the politics now. Even we're not going to the politics, that they give more money to the Arab society, to let them grow, to let them to be equal as much as we can. This will make the difference, when there will be more opportunity. If somebody is Arabs, and remember when I just finished my army, I was still in Jerusalem, and I thought, okay, I work in some Chinese restaurant, I just finished my army, and I met some Arabs guy from East Jerusalem. He was a doctor, and he couldn't work. Today it's different. It's in this way, it was better. So the people need to get opportunity to grow, to do things, to when they have a baby, to look at this baby and think he gonna have the best opportunity in life. And the reality is not. And this is what makes the anger. That's why people really angry, and especially in a mixed city, you know. If even not Arabs and Jewish, even poor people and people with more wealthy, yeah, when they see the difference, then it will be anger. And that's why I think the society try to look at the different and the weakness, and give more strength to the weakness and to the different, and give more support to that. And the society doesn't do it. In the last 10-15 years, they give money only to people who have money. I know it, because I do approach a lot of projects with education ministry, with many other areas, and I see where the money go. So this is part of what's happened. That's what, of course, my opinion.
I see because I'm Japanese, and I agree of Miri and Bisan said, but some point I didn't agree also. It's about the political framework. Because I came to the 97 after the Oslo agreement. It's kind of peacetime. And I understand that that time of the government and this time of the government in Israel is very different. As Miri said, it's really try to segregate in society. But the other side, I saw in the Jerusalem, because I live in the kind of border place, east and west. And it used to be, I go to the both of the side myself, but my husband never go to the east side, or the people, my friend, they live in the east side, never come to the west side. But now, because of I think the one big impact is a train. They pass into the Arabic neighborhood and Jewish neighborhood. And many also like city center, many point of the city centers. So now I saw in the much more, East Jewish side, I see the Arabic woman walking to the place, or some like shop. If I go to the hospital, I almost didn't. It's difficult to figure out who is Jewish and who is Arab because so many mixing situations. And then the reality in the grassroots, actually less segregating than before. I feel like this. Maybe the policy is also important to how to destroy into the wall between to them, but also policy, if they make into the wall, maybe another 10 years or 15 years may be affecting. Because now I feel like, because people in East Jerusalem or people in the Arab Israeli nationality is more mixing each other. But I go to the Bethlehem 10 minutes from my house. It's kind of a Palestinian, it's Palestinian territory. They are much become divided each other for us. Used to be I can go to just drive in my car to the street. I arrive into the Bethlehem, then go to the Hebron. But now I have to always check in the point for each places. And now I feel it's really divided of the territory over there and territory here. So it's really, what do we have to do for coexistence? One side, we have to continue of grassroots connection each other, any kind of reason, any kind of things we find in the same like interest, we can active together, we do it together. But other side, also we have to push into the government, try to change in the framework or system of the society. This is, I think, especially important of the majority of the people. The majority having the power. So that's why the majority of the people, we have to care about this kind of what's the different condition of the life. What the Miri said, the Jewish kids grow up in the same grow up in the same year. The Arab kids more or less opportunity to do in the society. This is a framework of the society, and this is a way a government have to make try to make changing a new policy. And this kind of framework, we also same time each one person that maybe doesn't have in the power, but if we are the majority, we can work in together. So this is I hope. Usually many people think about so tired of after the 70 years of the conflict. Everybody said, we want it to be peace, but we don't find in the solution. The solution is easy. We wanted to live in together. Okay, just to try to keep in this hope, never give up. This is what I think it's a really first step of the coexistence. So this is what I always try to teach in my kids and try to explain for other people.
Thanks, Junko-san. By listening to you, three of you, I feel that we really need to look at different symptoms and happenings carefully, because I think that this is a very sensitive layers. You don't see it one way that the situation getting harder or not, because obviously things are changing, and also that politics and also the physical environment is very complex. So that means it has a lot of opportunities to make improve, but also in certain area things are getting worse. I really appreciate that Junko-san started to talk about the what is the first step for the coexistence. I think also we are running the time. I want to also hear from Bisang and Mirit what you think about the first step of ideal coexistence for the society. Bisang or Mirit, would you like to share with us?
Sure, I can go if it's okay. I think it's very important to make this separation also between whatever is happening on the government level and whatever is happening on the grassroots level. And I think eventually we really need to do whatever we can in order to keep fighting and creating the reality we want to see. So even we can, it's a whole different discussion whether we can actually affect government and the government solution, yes or no. But if we just look at grassroots and like the importance of grassroots work, I think we have the responsibility to do whatever we can do in order to create a better future for our kids and for ourselves as well. I'm a true believer of all these grassroots programs. I grew up as like participating, and it made me a whole different person. It made me care more. It made me actually not lose hope. And it's hard not to lose hope when you live in Israel. I'm sure you can all resonate to that. It's very, very hard. You always need something to give you more hope. And I can tell you that every day I want to change my field. I want to take a break. I don't want to deal with politics. I don't want to do anything that has to do with the conflict. But I still do it. And because I realize that if we don't do anything, the situation is only going to get worse from here and not better. And I think it's our responsibility to make sure it is changing for the better. And I think I will just end with this positive note.
Thanks.
I used to work with a Japanese monk, his name is Rikoshi, and he used to work with Palestinian and Israeli. We have a lot of projects together. He used to say the Israeli and Palestinian need to have a really, really bad time to get out of that, but every time it's become worse and worse, so it doesn't happen. But I tell you what I usually say in my lecture when I give lecture to teacher, I usually say, you know, when I was young in my 20s, I thought to change the world, it's a big revolution, like Woodstock, like a big thing. But now when I'm 50 plus, I think to change the world is to change the circle around you. The people you touch, every person you meet, you do something for that. And this is the will change, because it's like a chain. If I touch somebody, somebody touch somebody else. And I do believe it, that this is, all the children, you know, me and Paul, look at the picture, because I look for, I didn't want to give you too many pictures, so we choose 3 pictures. And I look at them, and Paul said, you know, maybe they are married now with children. You know, the children who participate in 2005 in our project. So I think any project, any access to do something, even small, even big, will make the change. When it was the last mess and war lately, I live in Herzliya, and we have a mosque, I live 900 meters from the beach. So 900 meters from my house is a beach with a big mosque. And we heard that some few guys hit some Arabs there in the mosque. And the mayor of our city was very good. He sent the police cab to stay and look after the mosque. But we have a group in our community with WhatsApp, so we was writing to each other. So of course, me and a few others say, okay, let's send some beautiful basket with fruit and sweet to the mosque to let them feel that we like them, we are their friend, and we don't agree with the people who attacked. And then when we say that, many women in the groups, it's all women groups, start to attack us really badly. You know, I never saw it. I was really upset. So we decided to make another WhatsApp group, only the women who want to send something to the mosque. So we make the group, and some other women came to our group and start to curse us badly, really badly. Really nice women, because I know I have another head as a helping to a weak woman. So this woman come and curse, helped me with other women before. I was shocked to see it. So we decided anyway to make this fruit and basket and sweet, and decide not to make a big row around it. So maybe 4 women went to the mosque and give 1 basket to the mosque and 1 basket to the police cab who was looking after the mosque. And then after we did it, we wrote in the group and put picture, and it was amazing. Everybody wrote, wow, kol hakavod, very beautiful. And I thought, where's the hate? It was a minute ago. 2 months after was an article in a newspaper that some criminal guys from Petah Tikva came to Herzliya and hit somebody near the mosque. So I wrote in the group, look, it's so important not to let a very small people with a criminal, with bad idea, to influence in our society. Look what happened to us. None of Herzliya come and hit somebody. None of us did something. But when somebody hit, everybody was afraid. And the afraid make the hate, and the hate make you to take away from that. So all what's happened lately, it just teach me something new. After, I work with Israeli and Palestinian and Arab for more than 40 years. But this is teach me that even it's so hard, don't be afraid. Do something good to show what you really believe. And maybe in the short term it's not very nice, but in the long term it's really work. So this is my suggestion to anybody. Do something good to make the future change, because you don't do it for them. I don't do anything for Arabs or Palestinians. I do for my grandchildren and my grandchildren. I do it. I'm not doing it because I'm a very beautiful person. I do it because I think about my son and his children future. And we have to do it, because if not, the future of our children and grandchildren not going to be nice. We'll be with a lot of violence, and we saw country with violence how it is. This is my opinion.
Thanks, Mirit. Thank you for sharing. I think, yes, sometimes doing good needs a lot of brave, and also is a lot of risk, especially when people are in a very tense moment. It can reach to violence. And a lot of friends of mine in the last war, they are very, very worried and scared of what's going on around them, because it's not that they got scared out of rockets, but they really got scared from where they live. And it is important, first keep your safety, but also don't let yourself close. Try to do something good. This is really important message. Thank you.
Sorry, take time. It was almost finished, but I wanted to add one thing.
Please.
My kids' school, the community is really kind of, because we're talking a lot about tension and this kind of all of the conflict. So we know each other quite well. And then I remember when 2014, I was, as you said, everybody afraid because of the violence is going out. Not only the Jewish and not only the Arabs, both of them afraid. Then my school is give to the kind of safety box. It's kind of, if I go to there, I know those people not against anybody. not against each other. This is give me like kind of like feel like comfortable and then give to like place I can live. So I think this is how we try to create a community. And then still the communities are only the school, but I hope the future, the country become like this. Probably we don't need any more afraid in anybody. And then we can show in what I am. So this is what I hope to create in here. Sorry, I passing the time, but I wanted to add in my experience.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think it's really, I do agree. Well, going back to what you said, that it must be starting from personal level, from the grassroots. That is the foundation of trust. It cannot be making trust shape with, I don't know, national level or society level, because all comes from personal relationship and personal engagement. And I think all of you actually making that action of bridging people, or you yourself engage with others towards the coexistence. And I really appreciate today's conversation. Thank you very much. I just want to also ask if anyone from audience would like to share the feedback or any questions to speakers, more than welcome. Okay, so I think no one actually.
Yes, I would like to.
Hi, Shir. I'm sorry, but I think the sound a little bit distorted. Sure, maybe you can text to the chat box if you wanted to give some comments, so we can actually read over.
Can you hear me?
I could hear a bit. Maybe you try speak now.
Okay, my connection is not really good here.
No, now it's better. Yeah, we can hear you well. Yeah.
Okay. So I was not the one to view back to Japan, and I was asked also from Japanese people and also Israelis that lived in Japan or visited in Japan. So they said that in Japan there are also a Korean living as a coexistence people in Japan, and the way that they grew up and live in Japan, some people they ask me if it's the same as in Israel. And Japan and came to Israel. And it was time to hear that there are differences in opportunity in Japan, in school and stuff like that. So maybe you can share, is it the similar, if the problem, or if there is something that Israel can learn from Japan, how they live and coexist.
I partially was not able to hear your voice, but correct me if I'm wrong. Your question is that in Japan also the coexistence with Japanese people and Korean people, and you want to hear opinion about how the both coexist in the society? Shiri, sorry.
No, she's out, I think. I'm very sorry, but I don't see her.
Oh, okay, maybe she tried to
Reconnect again, maybe, but it was a very important question, but I think that we have not enough time. I think, sorry, but we have to finish.
Let's ask Shil personally after this session.
Good.
Yeah, to understand her question and see how we can also respond to her questions.
Yes, great. And we can put it on our website, IJ-WIN's website, and then, yes, great idea. Yeah. And I don't see her anymore here. I think she's trying, but he couldn't. So.
Okay. And also I see the chat comments that that's the olive picking season will begin. So it will be a great opportunity to mix with Arabs and Palestinian neighbors. Oh, I'm so jealous. I'm in Tokyo and we don't have olive trees, and it sounds great. Anyone else? If not, I think we're going to close today's session.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for this session.
Yes, before we close, yeah, okay.
And Naomi-san, you wanted to announce some notification from IJ-W?
Yes, could you give me may I share the screen, please? Any host can give me the sharing. Hadass שומעת?
תעבירי.
Oh, okay. Here, so thank you very much. It was very interesting stories, and it gave me the new ways of thinking about coexistence in Israel. I have a lot of things to think about what those great women told us. And Fumi-san, thank you very much to give us this opportunity to listen. So now I'm informing you about next WIN webinar, the next month, Friday, 27th of August. We invite two judoka as our guest. One is the coach of Israel official judo team, Miki Tanaka. She's one of my good friends, and now she's
at the Tokyo in the Olympic Games. And another one is from Nihon University, judoka Yuka Nishida-san. So we will talk about the cultural difference from the point of view of judo. Yeah, next time we will have in Japanese this webinar. So please don't miss and join us. Thank you very much.
Okay.